Jed Hoyer's end of the season interview gives us more insight on what the Chicago Cubs are looking to do this offseason, how he felt about this season, and about how he's going to approach things with the Kyle Tucker decision, as well as Shota Imanaga. We got to talk about it right after this. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. I'm your host, Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, do me a favor, y'all. You do not want to miss what we got planned this offseason. Go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button, and make sure that you are in tune, locked in with your boys all offseason, as we will be discussing the Chicago Cubs moves, miscues, missteps, the things that they did right, the things that they did wrong, as well as talking about the fact of what the Chicago Cubs are looking to do in 2026. Listen, you don't want to miss a single second of it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit that follow button if you are on Apple or on Spotify. And listen, I appreciate each and every last one of you that are tuning in to these episodes, because it is you that make these possible right here on Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. That being said, guys, listen, Chicago Cubs vice president or president of baseball operations, Jed Hoyer, whatever. He's like next in command underneath the ownership group. He is the guy that makes majority of the decisions. Him and Carter Hawkins work in tandem together. He took over this position for Theo Epstein after Theo stepped down from the position, and he had a 4-year plan basically on to get the Chicago Cubs back to the postseason. And for what it's worth, when you look at Jed Hoyer, his plan worked. Now, were there some hiccups along the way? Could he have made it in 3 years? Absolutely. We are a missed catch from Seiya Suzuki away from the Chicago Cubs potentially, being in the postseason long before Jed's plan was actually set to fully unfold. It also took a little bit of luck, like finding somebody like Kyle Tucker and being able to trade from him. It also took, being able to sign talents like Shota Imanaga. It also took being able to get Seiya Suzuki. It also took trading off all of the talent that the Chicago Cub faithful loved and knew as their own. And it's unfortunate that that had to happen, but at the same time, it was for the greater good. One thing as an overall point that I want to point out about Jed Hoyer, and I really do believe this with all my mind, heart, and soul. Jed Hoyer does things for the greater overall good of the Chicago Cubs. And as Chicago Cubs fans, we may not like it. We may not like it one single solitary bit. But at the same time, guys, I do believe that Jed Hoyer makes decisions based off of what's the greater good of the Chicago Cubs. It was not easy to trade off the talent that he traded off in Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and Javier Baez. It was not easy to choose to not to re-sign, not to re-sign Wilson Contreras. The Kyle Schwarber thing is still a head scratcher. Don't get me started on that. And that was, honestly, I think that still might have been a Theo, or Theo might have been gone by then. It might have been a Jed move. But either way, still, I mean, I guess he looked and he said, "We got Ian Happ. What we need Kyle Schwarber for." Oh, that's laughable. That one's laughable. Anyways, we look at this and we understand that Jed Hoyer does have a plan. Does his plan always happen? Does it always come into fruition? No. But a good deal of time goes into, I think, a lot of the research and a lot of the scouting and a lot of the planning that him, Craig, Carter, and the rest of the staff put together in order to figure out who they could bring in to make this roster better. And I'm not gonna glaze too much on Jed, but I do think props overall do need to be given to Jed Hoyer for the roster that he put together in 2025. And he's not even one that's like patting himself on the back. When he was asked in his interview, in his presser after he finished all his player meetings and coaching staff meetings, he talked about, that he felt disappointment after this season. He said because the last thing that stays on your mind basically is the last thing that happened, which the Chicago Cubs did not complete the goal of winning the World Series. That was the goal for 2025, and I really believe that they set themselves up in some aspects to be successful and others not be successful. But he said the last thing that happened was they did not reach all of their goals. They made it to the postseason, which was goal. They wanted to win the division, and they were in very good shape to win the division. But like I said, the Brewers went on an improbable run, and that caused them to go ahead and win the division. But he also stated that as he looks away from it and as he'll look back on 2025 with a lot of pride in the coaching staff, pride in the players. And like I said, he said the coaching staff was remarkable. They found edges and ways to beat their opponents. And they have a real foundation to build from here on out, which I agree. You look at the foundation the Chicago Cubs have: Michael Bush, PCA, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner. That's a foundation to be proud of. That is absolutely a foundation that you can be proud of, that you can say to yourself, okay, we can win some ball games with this foundation. And again, I'm really expecting Michael Bush to take a long stride in 2026. Like I said, being able to hit that 30 plus home run mark was major for him, and that's with him giving up a lot of ABs to Justin Turner, who either I hope really retires, to be honest with you, and just turns into like a hitting coach or something like that. I think joining the Cubs organization or going to the Dodgers organization, I think either one of those would be great for him. But as for Michael Bush needs to be an everyday player next year. No more of this sharing time with anybody. Every day ABs. He's the same as Nico. He's the same as Dansby. Outside of an injury, everyday ABs. You have a spot at third base where you can supplement over there, and you still have questions on who's going to play right field for you. Will it be Seiya Suzuki, or will he be back DHing, or will Moises Ballesteros be your DH? But nonetheless, again, I agree with Jed on this statement. I will talk to you guys about the statements I disagree with him and the statements I agree with him on. I agree with him. He should be proud of the team that he built in 2025. I mean, especially that bullpen. That bullpen was something to behold because it looked absolutely nothing like what it looked like to start the season. He was able on the fly to remake that bullpen and to pull pieces up and to pull guys up. You lost Porter Hodge. I mean, like I said, there were so many things that happened. You again had to DFA another Astros pitcher because, like I said, he couldn't get the job done. Then he ended up going back to the Astros, which is hilarious, But again, you look at the situation that the Chicago Cubs found themselves in, and you say to yourself, you won a lot of games. You won 92 games. That's a lot of games. You should be proud of that. You had a winning record. You made it to the postseason. You won a wild card series. You were a game away from making it to the National League Championship Series. And again, I do believe across the board that the Chicago Cubs believe that they're better than the Milwaukee Brewers. I think Craig Counsell points and Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins probably all point to the Brewers' luck because the Brewers started the season off horrible, and they were able to turn it around to their fans' delight. They were able to turn it around and host playoff baseball for 2 rounds now. So, I mean, like I said, it is what it is when it comes to that. But when you look at the Chicago Cubs, the season was not a failure. You might not have reached the ultimate goal, but the season by no means was a failure. Jed also had this to say on building postseason teams. He said the margins are really, really close. We just have to continue to strengthen our roster in different areas to withstand that. I thought we got low on pitching in the postseason. Once again, this is another thing that I agree with Jed on. I think when it came to the postseason, the Cubs just fell short of what they needed pitching, and a lot of that had to do with injuries. You lost Justin Steele. You lost Cade Horton. I believe as crazy as I may sound, had the Chicago Cubs been able to go Matthew Boyd, Cade Horton, and then Jameson Taillon, I believe that they would have beaten Milwaukee. I have no doubt in my mind that I believe the Chicago Cubs would have beat Milwaukee. Cade Horton has had tremendous games against Milwaukee. Like I said, Matthew Boyd not having to go on early rest would have been even better for the Cubs. And then Jameson Taillon was shut down, lockdown pitcher for the Chicago Cubs down the stretch and into the postseason. Both appearances in the postseason for Jameson Taillon, he did really, really good. So you look at that and you say to yourself, man, had you had Cade, and then, oh my God, had you had Justin, you start really thinking about what the Chicago Cubs could have been. Because that pushes back Shota Imanaga into a spot where you don't have to necessarily pitch him second. And again, like I said, this is his first taste in postseason baseball pitching too. So you have to understand what that means for him. So again, I agree with Jed. The margins are very, very minimal, but the Chicago Cubs need to do all that they can to spend some actual dollars on pitching this offseason, to actually go out and spend money on pitching, not just go try to find value. I appreciate that you're able to go find these older pitchers that teams may think don't have a lot of value, and you're able to go find value with them and have them come to your team and be successful. But sometimes that also blows up in your face. Like the Houston pitcher. I'm not even going to say his name because he pisses me off. But, we'll skip it. Ryan Presley. Trying to find value in somebody like Ryan Presley when it was clear the Dodgers, he lost his closing spot with the Dodgers because he was unable to finish games. He kept giving up runs. You bring him over here to Chicago, he does all right for like the first month and a half, but then you start seeing some very ugly sides come out and some teams really hit the ball hard against him. And you realize, hey, he's still not there. It blows up in your face. Those gambles you can't continue to take. You need to start figuring out how you can, instead of taking calculated risk or calculated gambles, how you can go out and get good pitching. And I mean, for what it's worth, Craig even mentioned this. Some of that is going to be through the draft. Some of that is going to be through, making trades. Some of that is going to be, some homegrown talent that just comes up and is ready to play. Maybe a Jackson Wiggins. I really wish the one question that we did not get asked in this interview was, are you now looking back, are you willing to go make a trade with some of your younger talent for maybe some more established talent? And again, I think it's because everybody knows his philosophy. Jed really values that AAA farm that he's built up, and he really wants to see those guys through. So again, I don't expect him to trade off many of those guys. I expect those guys to eventually all make it to the major league squad, which means Ian Happ, which means Seiya Suzuki, which means, like I said, those guys are going to, eventually have to give up those spots. I mean, that's just what it is. And they're hoping maybe another year for Moises Ballesteros, maybe going back and forth before, and let Carson Kelly play one more year, and then hasta la vista, Carson Kelly, and your two catchers will be Mo Bally and gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. Anyways, you guys know the other catcher I'm talking about, Miguel Amaya. Sorry. So, like I said, I mean, you look at it, and you have to understand where the Chicago Cubs stand and where this front office stands. They believe in their AAA players, and they believe that these guys are going to flourish here. So, but the next things I do want to talk to you guys about, Jed Hoyer's conversation about Kyle Tucker, and we'll talk about that right after this. I have been talking ad nauseum, and I still will continue to talk about the product, the brand that has changed my life and can change yours too. What's that product? It's Dubby. It's an all-natural energy supplement that you can take on the daily to help you get through those urges, those moments when you want to nap, then when you hit the cliff, or if you had a long night the night before and need to get through another crazy day of the hustle and bustle, the 9 to 5, whatever you got going on. Dubby is your energy drink. That's right. Not to mention, when you buy a container of W, it actually equals out to almost $1 per drink. You can mix it in with whatever you want, whether that be a juice, whether that be a water, whether that be some type of other energy flavored drink, whatever you want, you can mix W with it and it will do the trick for you. Guys, I don't understand what you're waiting on. W takes care of everything for you. All you have to do is go on to the W website and place your order. And at this time, when you do that, all you have to do is put in Cubs Central Pod 2024. That's right, Cubs Central Pod 2024, and you get 10% off on your W order. That's right. Hey, listen, guys, I'm telling you right now, Jitterless Energy. They have all different types of different flavors for you. W has what you need. Be better with W. Jed Hoyer was asked what his thoughts were on Kyle Tucker and his pending free agency. He had this to say first and foremost. He said, Kyle had a good experience here playing in Chicago. He enjoyed playing in Chicago. The fans made a huge impact. Once again, all statements I agree with from Jed Hoyer. I do believe that Kyle Tucker did enjoy his time in Chicago. I do believe he enjoyed playing with the fans. The only thing I would tell you is that Kyle Tucker probably did not enjoy the media sometime that scrutinized basically his every waking move. I don't know that he got that as much in Texas, but he was one of the guys, not necessarily the guy. I don't think he got called out nearly as much in Texas as he probably did here in Chicago. And Texas was a little bit easier of a field to play at with that short porch over there in left field, that you could hit a lot of home run bombs to. Whereas here at Wrigley, unless you're playing basketball with the wind blowing in, your numbers decrease greatly. So he also mentioned Kyle has a big decision and he earned the right to make that decision. Once again, another statement I agree with Jed Hoyer on. Kyle does have a big decision. I don't know that he necessarily earned the right to make that decision, but again, a lot of teams are going to be willing to pay a lot of money for Kyle Tucker to play for them. And I just don't know how eager the Chicago Cubs are to pay him that money. Next question asked to him was, if Kyle Tucker doesn't return, are you okay with going youth and development, or would you think it's imperative to add another established position player or designated hitter? Jed's response was, Kyle had a huge impact on our offense this year, and if he's not here, that leaves a void, and we have to figure out how to fill that void. But there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think that that will be the focus. Yes, if we don't retain that caliber of a player, then we need to figure out how to replace that war or those wins, and that's something we will be focused on. But how you do that is something you can do in many different shapes and forms. All right, so we get to the first smell line detector of BS. Let me tell you something. It's not many players out there that's playing that's going to be able to produce the type of war that Kyle Tucker produced. And again, I understand, y'all. He did not kill this season like he did for a year ago in Houston, and he did not have that great of a season. He was injury prone. He was often injured, and like I said, sidelined for the Chicago Cubs. So, but you can definitely see the different type of energy the Chicago Cubs and especially Kyle Tucker played with at the beginning of the season, and that's a key indicator. I mean, it literally turned Seiya Suzuki's season around too, hitting behind somebody like Kyle Tucker or hitting in front of somebody like Kyle Tucker. And again, it helped PCA as well, who before a lot part of the season was hitting behind Kyle Tucker until he went into his slump. So you have to understand what a caliber of hitter like Kyle Tucker and his type of repertoire does for your batting order. And you have to understand what he brings to the table in that sense. That's not easily replaceable. So in my eyes, you can't tell me that you're just going to go get some youth and put them and plug them in right there. You have to replace Kyle Tucker with another notable hitter, somebody that is a home run killer. That's what you have to do. You cannot just go out here and say, "Oh, I'm just going to replace Kyle Tucker with anybody." It doesn't work like that. There aren't a bunch of Kyle Tuckers walking around out here, man. And like I said, for everybody that's had something to say about Kyle Tucker and wanting him to be gone from this team, just let me remind you of what it means to lose somebody like Kyle Tucker. That means you're depending either on Owen Casey to take a step, Moises Ballesteros to take a step, or Kevin Alcantara to take a step. With Seiya Suzuki maintaining where he's at and PCA doing even better and asking more of Matt Shaw. You got to have a lot of stuff go right your way in order for the Chicago Cubs to maintain where their 92-win season this season. So that's BS. I don't like that. So the next question on how the Cubs plan to tackle this offseason with Tucker. Will they go in with this number or figure, or will they sit back and kind of see who's going after him? Jed's response, not just with Tucker, but with any player, when going into free agency, you have to evaluate that player as a whole and what his worth is to their organization. That's the backbone. When you react to how things are going around you, that's when you make real mistakes. That's going to be our focus. How do we value this player? Now, listen, this is half BS, half truth. Yes, you do have to absolutely evaluate the talent. But at the same time, again, there ain't a bunch of Kyle Tuckers out there. Like I said, I mean, and you know, this impending free agency, there are some studs in there, one of which used to play for you, a.k.a. Kyle Schwarber. It's your pristine opportunity, Jed, to right or wrong and bring Kyle Schwarber back to Chicago with the opportunity for the Cubs to really be something. If you cannot re-sign Kyle Tucker, if you do not want us to re-sign Kyle Tucker, you have to go out absolutely and go and get Kyle Schwarber or a talent of that, somebody that's going to provide home runs for your club. I mean, there's just no other doubt about it. And again, you need this because the Chicago Cubs sorely still, even with Kyle Tucker, in a lot of games lack the home runs. They went through a stretch of 3 months where it felt like the Chicago Cubs could only muster up 1 or 2 or 3 runs. Very rarely did you see them put up 6, 7, or 8 runs later on down the stretch as games went on. Now, their defense and pitching still won them a lot of those games, which is why they had 92 wins. But boy, would it be nice to have a team that could actually put up runs, and it don't matter if the wind's blowing in or out. You can actually still get victories. You can actually still hit home runs. So in my eyesight, this is BS. You have to know who you're going to go after, and you have to have a plan behind it. You cannot fly by the seat of your pants. You cannot wait on what other teams are willing to offer Kyle Tucker. You have to have a plan, and you have to be ready for anything when it comes to making a deal with Kyle Tucker. And if you cannot make a deal with Kyle Tucker, you need to make some trades, or you need to look at either a Bregman or a Schwarber, which we'll start looking at. We'll do an episode where we'll look at the tiers of potential free agents, and we'll kind of rate what they can bring to the Chicago Cubs if they do need to replace. So we'll just have to see what happens with that, man. But listen, that's my time for today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much. Please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and also leave a comment below. Or if you're on Spotify or you're on Apple, leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on the Chicago Cubs impending free agency with Kyle Tucker, what those discussions look like, and what do you rate the Chicago Cubs season overall, as a success or a failure? My name is Mike Jones. I appreciate you guys. Until next time, go Cubs.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.